Hi, Yvonne.
Hi, Evie.
Well, we definitely live what we talk, right, about. Because I mean, being in flow does help so much. You are completely lost
Yeah.
in the things that you do. Amazing.
Yes. So if you've been sitting waiting for this to go live, we were just discussing something, and then it was very exciting. It's part of a project, and of course the time just suddenly disappeared. So it was a quick look and think, okay, we're 5 minutes late. We best get on to this live. So we are here. We are with you. Thank you if you've been waiting patiently. And if you are just joining us now, great to be with you as always. And yeah, let me just close down my anything that's pinging in the background, which happens to be my emails.
Yeah. It's like, oh my goodness me. Okay.
Yeah, it happens.
I
So,
I love being live like this. I have
oh,
no
it's
idea.
just great, isn't it? Do you know what? The loveliest thing about being live
Yeah,
and not being a perfectionist myself,
absolutely
is
not.
you show up, you do your thing, and it feels all very cool and calm, and there's no pressure. I don't feel any pressure. I apologize for our lateness. It is as it is, but it's all good stuff. But we're here this week, Permission to Thrive. And what we're going to be looking at this week is what we've called the visibility hangover. And it's really about those moments when, and it's so interesting because I want to say when we leak the truth
Mm.
and then wish we hadn't and want to retract, take it back. Uh, and why do we do that? Like, why, that need to attract what is true to us, what is happening. It's a little bit like us today, like us being late. I could make up 2,000 different, I guess,
Stories.
excuses for it and stories for it. But actually, no. We were in the flow about a project. It was really exciting. Time evolved, and we were stuck in it. So here we are. So let's talk about this visibility hangover. And it's a really interesting one because I kind of have a story, but it's not really tied to either of the phrases. Or maybe it is. But the first one that we're going to look at is I said too much. And I'm going to let you go first, Debbie. Is anything, does anything about this visibility hangover, I've said too much, where you've said things and just thought, oh, has that been something for you?
I can't really think of something right this minute. I can definitely relate being a person of like a very fiery person that I probably do say too much that I shouldn't sometimes again. But not in that context, not like in the context of like, oh, I said too much and I have caused somebody to feel bad because of things that I said and so on and so forth. Probably it's more like, oh, I should um, keep keep whatever I'm thinking to myself so I don't step on anybody's toes. But I don't necessarily, feel that. And I don't think I ever felt that in, in that context. So no,
Yeah.
not really. That doesn't really um
Yeah. It's an interesting one though, because even then when you were saying, potentially I've said something and just thought, oh well, maybe that wasn't the right thing to say because of somebody else's feelings. It's not always about somebody else's feelings. That for me is the bit. So I won't go into great detail because it's a little bit of somebody else's story, but it was something that I was privy to. And last week, um, last week, I was not in my best space. I was not in my best space because something had happened to somebody who I know, and it was, it impacted me emotionally. I really felt for them. And I had a meeting with a client, and my client had just said, "Oh, lovely to be here as always. How are you?" And I just said, I'm not at my best. And now that was really weird because one, so let me first of all explain that my relationship with my clients is deep and meaningful. I don't do surface relationships. So, and by that, what I mean is I don't hide me from them. And that's important to me. That may be completely different for somebody else. Somebody may think it's unprofessional. They're not my thoughts. They're somebody else's, not my issue. Um, and then the minute I kind of said it, I thought, oh, do I now need to give them some background to that? Or do I just leave it there? And this is what I mean. So I spilled into the truth because the truth was I wasn't in the best place. That didn't mean to say that I wasn't able to do what needed to be done,
Yeah.
but emotionally I was feeling um, quite vulnerable, I guess. Um, and I I did give them a little piece of what that was, no more than I really needed to. And of course, that the bit afterwards for me was, oh, should I have just said I'm fine and just got on with it? You know, so that whole thing, should I have just been like, oh no, I'm great, I'm fine, and done all of that stuff, you know, which once upon a time I would have done 100%. Now in the space and the place that I'm in, I just can't, I just struggle to do that. I'm like, I want to tell you that I'm okay and I'm fantastic and I'm great, when actually I'm not fantastic and great. I'm feeling something very different to that. And I don't have to give you the whole picture of what that is, but I do feel that if I'm engaging with you and I'm saying, you know, permission to be your full self, then I must also have that permission. And so that was a moment for me when I thought, oh, should I have said that? Not sure. But actually, it was my truth. It was exactly where I was. And once I got over the, oh, should I or shouldn't have, I was just like, I can be with that because I'm not asking the other person to do or be anything else. I'm literally just sharing that piece with them so that if they do notice anything, maybe different about my tone or anything at all, then they'll have a sense of why that might be showing up. And that is, you know, if we cannot be honest, I feel like that's an issue. That like if we cannot be true, that's an issue. I don't know. How do you know? I'm
No,
putting that
the
out there.
way now you're sharing it, it makes a lot of sense because at the end of the day, yes, we work with people and we are speaking with people all the time, and it's not
Mm,
possible that throughout all these interactions we are in our absolute finest all the time, every time, and whatever. We're also humans. We're also dealing with our own personal lives and things, and sometimes they're great, sometimes they're not, sometimes they're just average. I don't know. I mean,
mm,
the thing is that I love what you said about deep, meaningful relations, because the people that work with us, the women that work with us, primarily work with us because they want to be seen. And we cannot offer that space if we're not willing to step into it as well. Because I strongly believe that you cannot do something unless you have experienced it yourself, especially in
mm,
this. And it's very hard to just expect somebody to be vulnerable with you, to express all these things, and you not being. I'm not saying necessarily vulnerable because they're not there to solve your problems or whatever. Again,
mm.
but to be true to them. And as you
Yeah.
said, it's not about like, oh, you need it now to vent or whatever, but it is about them understanding that if your tone is a little bit different, if you feel a bit different, you know, the space you're sharing is a bit different, there is a reason behind it. And I think this is beautiful, if nothing else, you know, because it creates the trust,
Mm.
but not the like the I wouldn't say fake trust. It's not about fake trust. It's about like, the trust that you are creating sort of superficially to make sure
Yes.
and give the space to the people that work with you is the the real thing. And I feel it, like, no matter what I do, how I work with the different people that I work with, I tend to do that. I tend to give them a piece of me in a way, because the more truthful you are and the more ready you are to own who you are at
Yes.
any moment and time, the more the people that work with you will receive that and gain something from it. And to me, that's
Yeah.
what that is.
Yeah. Well, I think, I talk about embodied self-leadership. So for
Yeah.
me, I have a responsibility for myself, to myself, and part of that responsibility is to be able to be honest, not spewing all over somebody, and trying to make anybody else feel anything. Just some honest words to put into context where I am and still be able to get on and do the work in the same manner, with the same empathy, with the same whatever that I would normally bring. Because at the same time, I also I had another piece of work that I had to deliver last week, to a to an organization, and I did not want to express anything about what I was holding. But what I did do was I gave myself real recovery time before I had to do the work and after. And that wasn't by chance. I just made it so. I thought, I know how I'm feeling right now. I know what's kind of going on for me. So I need to really be with myself. I need to just do some breath work. I need to do a little bit of movement. I need to really just, just center myself so that I can do this piece of work from the heart because I don't like, performing. Don't want to do the whole, polished performance. I like to work from the heart. So I needed to be able to do that. But for me to be able to do that really, really well, I needed to give my space on both sides of that delivery so that I could just center myself, um, and still show up being me. Still show up being me.
This is really important, isn't it? I mean, because that's what we are working with. Is like,
Yeah.
how do you take like agency of yourself, and how do you show up in the way you want, but not by depleting yourself? And I love how you described it, because that's exactly the work. That's exactly what we do. We show up in the best possible way, but we can do that only because we honor who we are and our feelings and how things are, and everything else that allows us to come and show ourselves from like a cup full rather than a cup half empty or empty or whatever. So yeah, that's perfect, isn't it? That's
Yeah.
the way it should be. So
Yeah.
what
And
would
I
you say, yeah, to somebody that doesn't know how to navigate that? Because that sounds fabulous.
Well, I think it comes down to, and again, I'm sure there will be women who listen to this, hopefully, and will have some stories to share of their own. But I think us watering ourselves down, us keeping bits locked away completely like nobody should know. So, for me, I don't know whether it's an age thing because here I am, like at this stage of life, I'm just done with all of that. And I don't know whether that has an impact, but actually, it's okay to be all of you. And when the truth leaks out, own it. It's yours. Um, that we feel bad when we have said something that was actually our truth and our honesty. How did we get to there? how did we get to that place where we do feel bad about that anyway?
It is a, I think it is an era thing as well. It's how things are perceived and how important it is to polish your words so they don't land in the wrong way, or you know like to be, I don't know how else I can say it so it does not sound like a bit odd. So I think that that is the background of this. That's how you tend to censor yourself, because in your mind you think, yeah, that sounds very logical, that's who I am, that's how I think, but I don't know how the other person is going to take it, so let me not express it. And we have spoken about this in the past as well. It's like the voices that are heard the loudest are not necessarily the majority of um, the way that, or like it's not necessarily the way the most of the people think. That
Mm,
is the issue. But we learned, and I think nowadays more than ever, to keep our mouths closed and to hold our opinions to ourselves,
mm,
because otherwise it becomes like, uh, she's too much, she doesn't know what she's talking about, she doesn't have my own experiences, and I don't know what. Yeah, fine. I mean, not everyone will have the same experiences, not everyone will go through the experiences the same way, not
mm,
everyone will think the same way. But I believe that if you really feel that something needs to be said, that is not like necessarily an offensive thing, like
mm.
generally speaking, an offensive thing, because
Yes,
anything we say can be offensive to somebody,
to
right?
someone.
So then it is best if you discuss, and if you find yourself having to apologize, at least understand why you're apologizing, because
Mm,
I don't agree in apologizing either, constantly for all the things that you say,
yeah, yeah.
especially
I,
things you said like 20 years ago. I mean, it
yeah,
doesn't make any sense, but okay, it is something that's done
absolutely.
often nowadays.
And I think this is also trying to, we want to be shedding this thing about everything has to be polished and I need to watch every P and Q and I need to, you know, because if you are expressing something that is just true in that moment for you, then if you have to now feel that and have to watch out for every single person's thought, opinion about that, you just wouldn't bother talking half the time, right? You just would just say, well, what's the point? Because then anything I say, could, as you said, could offend anybody, could upset anybody, could make somebody think this of me. And I think that is the biggest challenge here, or the biggest issue is here. Now that I've said that, what do they think of me? What,
Yes,
do they think I'm this? Do they think I'm that? And that for me is the big silencer. I have to watch what I say because otherwise people will think I'm too loud, I'm too this, she's too much, takes up too much space, she's got too many thoughts, too many opinions, too many, too many, too many. And actually, have your thoughts and your opinions and stand with them. They're yours. As long as you're owning them and you're not expecting or demanding anyone else to agree with them,
correct.
it's okay. And I know from my experience, I said last week, I'm just like, no, I deserve to be able to express what is going on for me without me having to apologize for it, and without me having to hold it all down and suppress it in order to be this thing, this person that is an expectation. And again, I said, as a part of that, I think it's an age thing. Like I'm just so done with all that. I feel like I've done that for a good percentage of my life, and I'm just not prepared to do it anymore. But when I have, but also when I say that, that caveat still exists that if I'm holding something, a space, and I have to come with my most professional self, then I know what I need to do before and after that in order for me to do that.
But you see, this is nicely regulated, though, isn't it? Like, because it is your choice. It is in a way that doesn't harm you or
Mm,
anyone around you.
indeed.
On the contrary, it replenishes you, and it allows you to be who you are and show up the way you want. So
Indeed.
that is very important. But I mean, all these thoughts, I think, and this type of expressions or myths have to do also with how prepared you are to be visible, or how hard you find it um, to actually be seen, and not seen in the way that it is the acceptable way, or the way that you thought um, everyone else will perceive you as the right type of person. I don't know who that person is, but anyway, just
Yeah,
saying. Uh,
absolutely. And I think it speaks into humanity. We're humans. So guess what? As humans, we're allowed to feel things. We're allowed to have opinions. All of these things are allowed. And I think, like you said, providing they are not put into a space where they are meant to hurt and harm somebody, that's a whole other thing. Then we have the right to own those.
mhm.
And um, even now as we're sitting here talking, I'm like thinking, you know, is it really okay to just be honest, even if it's with a client? But I'm not asking anything from them. It was a question asked and I answered it honestly. That for me is the beginning and the end. It didn't have to go anywhere else. There was nothing else to it. And I think even that, because you start questioning, oh yeah, but is that professional? Is that which is exactly what I was doing with myself last week. I was like, oh, should I? And then I just thought, oh my goodness, stop this nonsense. This is ridiculous. You were asked something, you answered honestly. That's it, beginning
Yeah,
and the end. And actually, what I got back from the client was just like this deeply sincere, I feel that. And that's it. And then we got on with what needed to be done.
excellent, excellent.
Yeah.
So that does prove that we can be who we are without any consequences, as long as we do all the things that you have mentioned and stuff. And when it comes to professionalism, I think it's much more professional to explain to somebody if they ask why you're not going to be working from the same energy that you normally work, or
Mm.
whatever, because they have the right to also understand that, for the space that you're holding for them. No.
Absolutely. And I think if I didn't think if I couldn't deliver, if I couldn't be with the right energy for my work, that's a very different thing. Because then I would have
Of
to
course.
extract myself. Because
Yeah, because again,
that's different. Because
you're
that impacts
safeguarding
the other.
yourself and the
Yeah,
client, right? In that
absolutely.
case,
Absolutely.
it makes absolute sense.
Right. Other phrase, because we've talked that one to pieces, right? So the other phrase, I should stay quieter, which is really, you know, there's a little bit of shrinking to feel safe that I feel is tied to that.
Yeah,
That, I should stay quieter. That keeps me safe. That ensures that nobody has a different thought or an opinion to me and they come at me and I have to deal with that. There's a lot, I think, tied with that. Not one that I particularly have had to battle with, deal with. I should stay quieter. There are probably lots of people in my life who probably think they wish that I would stay quieter. But
I was
that's
thinking
not
the
who I
same
am,
thing
folks.
actually. Yeah, I think I also would have many people in my life that be like, oh, for goodness sakes, stop it.
Yeah, have a few less opinions, woman, for goodness sakes. But that's not going to happen. But I think, again, if we have this, when we're confronted with this feeling of, I should stay quieter, is are we willing to shrink ourselves to fit into spaces? Are we willing to shrink ourselves to ensure that everything is just nice? And again, for me, that's just a hard no. I'm just saying. Um, I know how to show up and I know how to behave, right? I also know how to own what is true to me. And I think that is kind of where we all want to head towards. It's like just because you're owning your truth doesn't mean to say that you're being rude, doesn't mean to say that you're overstepping lines, doesn't mean any of those things. But I think so much is tied to that
Yeah.
that we do feel, oh no, if I say that, it might upset this person, it might do that. It's better that I just don't say it. And then it's like, so you're now shutting parts of yourself down. And what does that really mean in the space, the environment that you're in? That you just show up being a bit of yourself? Yeah.
And probably you are taken away from, like sharing yourself with like properly, honestly, fully with the people that you love. And in some ways, and I want to bring that out there for the women that are watching us, because um, a lot of you probably have girls. That is the first thing that you need to think about when you are keeping quiet, because the like we're modeling that, right? Or they're modeling that. And even if you tell your daughter or your niece or whoever, like a young woman, say, oh, follow your heart, do the things that you want, blah 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 blah, like you give them all the right words. If you are keeping quiet, if you are not expressing, and this is evident, and it is evident, then you're not modeling the right thing. And it is a shame, because we all have a lot to share, a lot to discuss. And the other thing is that, okay, if your opinion or the things that you want to share are not right, but they're only like a thought in your mind, how will you know that this is the case or not? Because let's take it from the other side, like let's
Mm,
say that what you are expressing is not correct, right? Or it's not generally acceptable or whatever.
mm,
I mean, if you're not open to have the discussion, the conversation, where are you going to get the learning from? So it can sort of really affect somebody in so many ways,
yeah,
keeping themselves small, keeping themselves closed, like
absolutely.
this.
Yeah. And that's a really important point, Emily. And it something sprung to mind there, and it was a post probably that I saw on LinkedIn, but it was a long time ago. And the person who posted it, she was talking about people whose rooms she has sat down in. And this was to do with race. And she was saying, you know, she was the people or person that she was with was somebody who, you would say racist. But she said, if you're not willing to be in the room and listen to what they say, how can you give them another perspective and how can you change? It was just a really interesting conversation, really deep and meaningful. But this comes up with all of this, is the space for somebody to express themselves, and I don't mean with violence, with rage, and any of that stuff, and just to express something so that you can, if it's something that wants to be challenged, that you can challenge it, or that you can express a different perspective, or you can, all of those things. The thing is, we have got so good at shutting conversations down that some of the most important things that need to be spoken around are no are not
No.
spoken about at all. It's just
Yes.
like, it's just off limit. We just don't go there because this is polite society. Actually, but this is the real world. And we need to have the real conversations. And some of those conversations are ugly and tough, but they need to be had. And every time we suppress ourselves, we stop that from happening. So for me, speak your truth. Do it respectfully, because also you don't have to, and but also speak what you feel. Again, for me, that feeling of suppressing how we feel it's quite I feel is damaging. When we suppress what we feel, that's something that we're now holding in our body. We have to do better. We
Mhm.
have to do better. And for that to happen, we also have to stop worrying about how much people like us or don't like us. You know, whether we're meeting whatever expected standards have been put forward or not. I personally want to live more of that. I want to be more of that. And I am working on it. That's a work in progress. It is a work in progress. How do I embody all of who I am and care dash less about what everybody else is going to think?
But we are all work in progress, and that is the whole point. And the moment we shut parts of ourselves down,
Yeah.
then we are not allowing that progress to take place. We don't, I mean, where is the growth in that?
Mm,
And like I know for a lot of the women that we work with and a lot of women that listens to us here, the growth is a big deal for them.
yeah.
So by keeping yourself small, by keeping yourself invisible, in reality, what you're doing is you're not allowing growth to take place. And it can go either way, but you have to let it happen because
Mm,
every conversation is has a potential of growth, has a potential of learning something new, and we need to be open to that. But we need to be open to contribute to that as well, not just sit there and listen and take in information. That's not necessarily growth. I mean, I know for a very long time that's what I thought. Like, oh, okay, yeah, I'm going to learn as much as I can from all these the sources that I can until I don't know. But doing that without practicing it, without discussing, without in, inviting new opinions, new
mm,
perspectives, you just don't really grow.
yeah. I do want to add something else though to all of that because this is such an important thing because when you look at a lot of the stuff that's happening around the world at the moment and just some really awful dark things is safety.
Absolutely.
Safety because anything that you want to express, and I think this is also a huge bit, is am I safe to express this in this space or not? Because your safety must come first. That I absolutely caveat around absolutely anything and everything that I've said is safety. Is there safety? Because that makes a massive difference.
Mm-hmm.
That makes a massive difference. Um, will that always, will you always be in a safe space? That's the question you have to ask yourself. And there will be those who just say, well, I'm big, I'm bold, I'm bad, I'm going to say it anyway. Because if I don't, nobody will. And we need those. We kind of need those too, because they are the ones that kind of break the silence and make it possible. But as the individuals and anything that we need to express something that's coming up for us is that safety. Can I do this without fear of attack, whether that's verbal, physical, or otherwise, emotional, all of those things. Yeah.
For sure. And I suppose that's why, like, if for any reason you don't feel this way, that's why communities are important. And that's why we all find our space in certain areas where we know we can share and we can um, potentially grow in a more safe place, or in a I wouldn't say maybe controlled place. Maybe that's not the right word, but in essence, that's what it is. It is like you are challenged and challenging, but you are in a safe space.
Yes.
Because I'm not talking about necessarily everybody says, yeah, they all agree, and because again, that's not growth
No.
either. So
Yeah, it has to be safe and it's being held, isn't it? And you're right, this is for me the goal of having communities is that I know I can go to this community, I will be held, I will be heard, nobody's there to judge me, um, and they don't have to agree with me, but I can still speak my truth.
mhm,
And that is just a wonderful place to be. That's, one of the reasons why we created Permission to Thrive, why I started the midlife threshold. I mean, all of these, and why there are so many communities that are already out there, right? Holding people, holding spaces for people, so that they can have a place to go to be in, where they can be true.
yep,
And I think the more we
absolutely.
practice that, the easier it becomes. That the more we practice being visible, having our thoughts and our feelings and expressing them, yeah, the easier it becomes to do so.
And I think after practicing it within communities that we feel safe, we feel secure, we can express. It is easier to actually bring that in the real world, and sometimes, and I think most times, we are like happily surprised that it wasn't as bad as we thought, or
Mm,
we have not really been judged. We have not really been shut down because of something that we said or whatever. On
mm,
the contrary, we can have logical, um, grown up discussions.
mm,
Let's say grown up, yes, grown up discussions, and um, be ready to agree to disagree, and so on and so forth. Yeah.
yeah, definitely. And I think for my parting thought for today is, if you know that you are kind of caught in that cycle of always wanting to retract the very thing that you've just said, like I've said that, oh my God, I now need to kind of eat those words back and take them back. It's just to leave something that you've shared unretracted. Just leave it, let it land, and be with that, and notice how that feels for you. Like, I haven't tried to take it back, I haven't apologized for it. How does that feel? Start really just being aware of what that feels like for you, and do it again another time, because breaking any of these patterns is an opportunity to practice something different. And oh well, that didn't feel quite right. Maybe I need to try it. Practice. We talk about exploring a lot, don't we, from in mental fitness. We have the opportunity to explore.
Absolutely. Yeah, that is a very good way to finish this conversation, I suppose, because people can take a little bit of something and practice themselves, and see how it works for them. So thank you very
Yeah.
much, Ron, for this Thursday. Sorry for keeping you from coming on time.
Thank you, as always, Evie, and thank you to anyone who has tuned in live or watched it on replay. Would love your thoughts, your experiences. What does this topic, what does these phrases mean to you or for you? Where have you said what you meant and then wanted to kind of claim it back? What does that bring up for you? Um, and how do we really go about our lives and change that? Because we need to be able to be true.
Definitely. And a bit
Yeah.
more visible, I think.
Yes. Thank you so much,
Until
Evie.
next Thursday. Thank you.
Take
Thank
care.
you.